Have you ever wondered why, in a world overflowing with talk about love, connection, and equality, relationships seem more fragile than ever? Why so many men feel confused, exhausted, and unseen, despite doing everything they were told would make women love and respect them? Nietzsche would not have been surprised. He believed that beneath every declaration of affection lies a hidden struggle for power, and that what we call love is rarely about union. It is about domination, survival, and control. In today's culture of dating apps, curated images, and constant validation, his ideas strike with disturbing accuracy. Love has become performance, attention has become currency, and affection has become negotiation. What Nietzsche saw in the salons of the 19th century, we now witness on screens every day. The endless dance of desire and manipulation disguised as romance. For Nietzsche, woman was not a mystery to be solved, but an instinct made flesh, the embodiment of life's cunning, the strategy of nature itself. To him, every gesture of affection concealed an instinct for preservation, and every declaration of devotion was a move in a much deeper game. Modern men who scroll through feeds filled with idealized beauty, who chase approval through texts and digital gestures, are not living differently. They are living Nietzsche's prophecy. We have turned love into transaction, passion into leverage, and authenticity into spectacle. The question is not whether women have changed, but whether men have forgotten what love truly demands: strength, clarity, and self-mastery. Nietzsche warned that those who mistake comfort for connection will lose both. He saw that the greatest danger is not in rejection, but in surrendering one's will under the illusion of intimacy. And in our time, that illusion has never been stronger or more seductive. Every man has felt it at some point. The moment when affection turns into tension, when words of love become quiet tests of control. It happens in conversations, in silence, in small acts that decide who gives more, who chases, who waits. In today's world, power is rarely about dominance in the obvious sense. It hides in emotional leverage, in who cares more, who walks away first, who appears less affected. Love has become a stage where both men and women play roles crafted not by honesty, but by strategy. Every like, every message, every promise carries a trace of calculation. We tell ourselves it is mutual care, but often it is negotiation disguised as devotion. What we call love has become a contest of subtle moves, and those who fail to see it mistake dependency for connection. Modern relationships mirror this quiet struggle. People claim to want equality, yet they measure affection by advantage. Emotional distance is treated as strength, while vulnerability is seen as weakness. Men who once sought meaning and loyalty now find themselves analyzing tone, timing, and intent, wondering whether they are partners or pawns in a social game. The more we speak of openness, the more guarded we become. We turn relationships into markets of validation, trading attention for reassurance, attraction for control. Love, stripped of its illusions, is not the harmony we imagine, but a reflection of human nature's need to assert, to win, to survive. The truth is unsettling. We do not love to surrender power. We love to possess it. Beneath every gesture of affection lies the oldest instinct of all, the desire to shape another's will. And until we face that reality, we will mistake the performance of love for the real thing. There is a reason why attraction feels like tension and not peace. Desire is not calm. It is a quiet competition wrapped in charm. Every man who has chased love knows the pressure to prove his worth, to stand out, to win what others want. It starts as affection, but becomes a test of who can command attention, who can stay desired, who can hold control without asking for it. In every relationship, whether we admit it or not, there is a current pulling beneath the surface, a struggle for influence, One person gives more, the other withholds more, and balance becomes a myth we pretend to believe. What drives this is not romance, but the simple truth that we want to feel power in the eyes of the one we love. The moment we lose that, we feel invisible. Look around today, and it is everywhere. In friendships that blur into something more, in couples that compete for validation, in marriages that turn into quiet rivalries. We say we want connection, but what we crave is significance. We want someone to choose us because it means we matter more than the rest. Desire has never been about peace. It has always been about impact. Even the most tender gestures carry traces of control. The man who stops chasing begins to attract, and the one who gives too much begins to fade. The truth is uncomfortable because it exposes something raw. Affection is not selfless. It is strategic. Every compliment, every silence, every act of restraint feeds a larger game of worth and dominance. Love, stripped to its essence, is a test of whose will is stronger, and those who fail to understand that mistake emotional surrender for genuine intimacy. Every man who has tried to understand a woman eventually learns that logic has limits. It is not reason that guides attraction, but instinct. Behind every gentle word and every glance, there is a deeper intelligence at work, one that does not think in theories, but in outcomes. Women have always known how to read people, how to sense weakness, how to move without appearing to move. What looks like emotion is often calculation, not out of malice, but survival. Nature gave them the ability to influence through presence, not confrontation. This is why men often feel drawn, disarmed, and confused all at once. The mistake men make is believing that affection means surrender. In reality, women master subtlety because the world rarely rewarded them for force. Today, this instinct is everywhere. It appears in how women navigate careers, relationships, and social spaces. They understand the power of perception, and they use it with precision. A simple tone can change the direction of a conversation. A pause can create control, and a smile can disarm authority. Modern society calls it confidence, but it is much older than that. It is the art of influence that has existed long before titles or equality. Men often think they lead, but they follow paths laid by quiet intention. This is not manipulation. It is adaptation. While men fight to be seen, women shape what is seen. They understand that the one who defines the narrative holds the real power. The more men chase logic, the more they miss the silent movements shaping their choices. Nature does not argue, it directs. And in this, women remain its most refined expression, not through dominance, but through the ability to make control look like affection. There is a reason why women rarely chase absolute truth. They value what keeps life stable, not what tears it apart. Truth often demands destruction, and destruction is something men are drawn to, not women. Men search for answers even when those answers burn down what they love. Women protect what must endure, even if that means preserving illusion. In every household, in every relationship, this difference plays out quietly. When a man questions everything, he risks peace. When a woman senses danger, she hides the spark. It is not deceit, it is protection. The instinct to shield, to soften, to preserve harmony is not weakness, it is survival. She knows that too much truth can break the very structure that gives meaning to her life. We can see this everywhere today, in conversations that avoid confrontation, in relationships where silence is preferred over honesty, in workplaces where diplomacy wins more than bluntness. Men often mistake this restraint for avoidance, but it is a different kind of intelligence. Women sense that truth without timing destroys trust. They sense when to reveal, when to conceal, and when to pretend everything is fine. The modern world praises openness, yet it still rewards those who can manage perception. That is the feminine instinct in action. Men may chase the truth of how things are, but women understand the truth of what keeps life moving. This difference explains why men often appear restless while women appear composed. The man breaks things to rebuild them. The woman holds them together long enough for him to realize what he almost lost. Truth may satisfy the mind, but it rarely sustains life. And women, more than anyone, know that survival always comes before revelation. Every generation believes it understands love better than the one before. Yet the same stories repeat. Men idealizing women, women disillusioned by men, and both wondering why passion fades once reality enters the room. We have built an entire culture on the fantasy that love will complete us, that finding the right person will silence the noise inside. Movies, music, and even therapy promise that love is the highest form of meaning, but few ask why it so often collapses under its own weight. The truth is uncomfortable. What we call love is built on illusion, not knowledge. It begins in projection, not understanding. We fall for an image, not a person. The excitement comes from the chase, the mystery, the hope that someone else will heal what we refuse to face in ourselves. When the illusion fades, we mistake disappointment for betrayal, not realizing that what has died was never real to begin with. In our time, this illusion has become stronger than ever. We confuse emotional intensity with depth, attention with devotion, and chemistry with connection. We chase constant stimulation to avoid the stillness that would expose our emptiness. Men fall for appearances that mirror their desires, and women fall for potential that mirrors their hope. When both wake up from the fantasy, resentment follows. Love, stripped of its decoration, is not eternal emotion, but temporary alignment. The tragedy is not that love ends. It is that we expect it to save us from the parts of life it was never meant to fix. Real love demands clarity, not intoxication. But clarity kills the illusion, and illusion is what most people truly crave. That is why the pursuit of love remains the most beautiful deception we willingly choose again and again. Every man has met her in one form or another, the woman who does not chase, yet never leaves the mind. She does not demand attention, she draws it. Her strength is not in what she says, but in what she withholds. She understands that desire grows in absence, not abundance, and that mystery feeds attraction better than words ever could. This is not magic, it is instinct. She knows that men are not conquered by logic, but by imagination. The more she leaves unsaid, the more he builds the image himself, until he no longer sees her as she is, but as he wishes her to be. That is the art of seduction, and it has not changed in centuries. Men think they choose, yet they are being led, not by force, but by curiosity, not by command, but by the quiet confidence of a woman who knows the game better than they do. In today's world, the setting has changed, but the dynamic remains. The seduction is not only through beauty, it is through timing, tone, and distance. A glance across a room can hold more power than hours of conversation. A simple moment of unavailability can create more desire than constant presence. The modern man, surrounded by abundance, forgets that scarcity still defines value. The women who understand this rule never need to chase it. They let others do the chasing. What men call confidence is often strategy born from awareness of human nature. The eternal seducer does not fight for attention. She shapes it. And the man who fails to see this loses before the game begins. Seduction, at its core, is not about attraction alone. It is about control disguised as connection, and that truth has not aged a day. A man's downfall rarely begins with failure. It begins with devotion. The moment he places his worth in the eyes of another, he starts to forget who he is. It happens quietly. He gives more attention, makes more sacrifices, bends his time and his purpose around someone else's emotions. What begins as care turns into dependence, and what once made him strong starts to fade. Many men today lose themselves not in battle or ambition, but in the pursuit of being enough for someone who never asked them to be perfect. They trade challenge for comfort and conviction for approval. The tragedy is not that they love, but that they forget that love must never replace their drive. When a man builds his identity around affection, he loses the very strength that made him desirable in the first place. We see this everywhere. Men who once dreamed of building something great now silence themselves to keep peace. They stop pursuing what gives them meaning, afraid that independence will make them unlovable. They confuse compromise with surrender and mistake validation for intimacy. Modern culture praises emotional openness, but never warns what happens when emotion consumes discipline. A man without focus becomes directionless, and directionless men become resentful. Love was never meant to be worship. It was meant to test whether a man could stay true to himself while caring for another. But too many confuse love with escape and end up chained to the comfort that drains their edge. The greatest mistake a man can make is believing that devotion is strength, when it is often submission disguised as tenderness. The truth remains the same. A man who forgets his purpose in the name of love loses both the woman and himself. There was a time when men built their lives around an image of the perfect woman. She was pure, loyal, nurturing, and untouched by the chaos of the world. That image guided entire generations of men, giving them something to chase, something to protect. But that vision no longer exists. The modern world has destroyed the pedestal, and what stands in its place is confusion. Men no longer know what to admire, and women no longer know what to embody. The ideal woman has been replaced by performance, the curated version of identity that changes with trends and approval. What used to be mystery has become visibility, and what used to be devotion has turned into transaction. The man who still searches for the woman who will complete him will never find her, because she was never real to begin with. He was chasing his own projection, not a person. Today's man faces a new test: to love without illusion. The woman of this era is not waiting to be saved, and she should not be. She moves through the same world, facing the same battles, driven by her own ambitions and contradictions. Men who expect purity find independence. Men who expect softness find strength. The world has shifted, and yet many men still mourn the loss of an image that never existed. The tragedy is not that women have changed. It is that men refuse to evolve with them. Love now demands understanding, not worship. To love a woman as she is requires more courage than to adore an illusion. The ideal woman died the moment men stopped seeing women as people and started seeing them as salvation. The only way forward is to accept that reality has replaced the dream, and love must survive without fantasy. Every relationship today seems to carry a quiet rivalry. It is not about who loves more, but who loses less. People no longer approach love as surrender, but as strategy. You can feel it in the smallest things: the delayed replies, the subtle tests, the quiet withdrawals meant to prove indifference. Modern dating has turned connection into a game where everyone is keeping score and no one admits to wanting peace. Men enter relationships not to lead or protect, but to survive the emotional battlefield where one wrong move can make them appear weak. The moment love becomes about leverage, it ceases to be about truth. Many men pretend to care less, speak less, give less, not because they lack emotion, but because they fear that emotion will cost them power. The tragedy is that both sides are fighting for dominance in a place where only understanding can exist. You can see this pattern everywhere. Couples compete for attention, not affection. Success becomes a measurement, and love becomes a currency. Men feel they must earn validation through achievement, while women test affection through control. It is a silent struggle where nobody wins because everyone is defending an ego instead of building a bond. Real intimacy cannot survive in a contest. Yet this generation fears losing more than being alone. The man who seeks to win love will always lose it, because victory in love means equality, not dominance. The only way to restore connection is to stop keeping score. When a man can love without trying to prove his worth, he reclaims his peace. And when a woman no longer tests love to feel secure, she finds what she was searching for all along: authentic devotion that cannot be measured, only felt. No one wants to wait anymore. Love today moves at the speed of convenience, not commitment. People want instant chemistry, instant understanding, instant loyalty, all before they've even built trust. The culture of speed has infected the way we connect. The moment something feels uncomfortable, most walk away, convinced that love should never demand effort. Patience has been mistaken for weakness, and endurance has become outdated. Men and women both expect perfection without process. They chase the high of the beginning, not the depth of the becoming. This impatience kills love before it ever learns how to breathe. The problem is not that modern people cannot love, but that they no longer know how to stay when love becomes work. The truth is, love has always required struggle. It asks for discipline, understanding, and forgiveness, things that cannot be downloaded, ordered, or replaced. Look around and you will see the evidence everywhere. Relationships end over miscommunication, over boredom, over the illusion that something better might be waiting. People no longer repair, they replace. Men grow afraid to invest because patience no longer feels rewarded, while women become tired of effort that feels one-sided. The entire generation moves from one connection to the next, collecting stories but never building roots. The result is loneliness that hides behind constant distraction. The few who still choose to wait, to build slowly, to listen when it's easier to leave, those people experience love as it was meant to be. Real love is not born from constant excitement, but from steady effort. The man who learns to stay when it is hardest gains something deeper than passion. He finds peace and loyalty, not because it is easy, but because in a world that rushes through everything, his patience becomes his greatest strength. There comes a point when a man looks around and realizes that everything he was taught about love, strength, and purpose no longer fits the world he lives in. He sees relationships built on fear instead of faith, validation replacing respect, and affection measured by convenience. The man who once believed that loyalty and effort were enough now feels uncertain about where he stands. Yet this confusion is not the end of him. It is the beginning. The modern man is being forced to evolve, not by choice, but by necessity. He must learn to balance emotion with reason, strength with understanding. He cannot return to the old ways of control, nor can he survive in the new world of detachment. His task is to find clarity in the middle of contradiction. In a time when everyone wants to be wanted, he must learn how to be whole by himself. Men today are beginning to wake up to this truth. They are learning that silence is not always strength and that vulnerability is not defeat. They are realizing that love cannot be earned through constant sacrifice, nor should it be withheld out of fear. The world has changed, and with it, the definition of masculinity. It is no longer about dominance, but direction, not about proving worth, but protecting peace. The man who understands this no longer seeks to own love, but to share it without losing himself. He stops chasing approval and starts choosing authenticity. The awakening of the modern man is not loud, but steady. A quiet rebuilding of what it means to lead with both mind and heart. And when he finally learns that love was never meant to take his power but to test it, he asks himself one question: do women still recognize real men anymore?